Seoul, Shanghai, Shanghai International Study University. Okay, so I'll have joined in the presentation. Ready?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Zou Ziqiang from Shanghai International University. Very happy to be here in the great event. My presentation is about China and the seaport development in the Eastern Mediterranean. Let's begin. As we all know, since President Xi put forward the Belt and Road Initiative in 2013, China has gradually increased its investment and construction in the seaport around the world, especially in the countries along the maritime Silk Road west south. Technically, China now has stronger seaport development capabilities and an intention to invest in seaports expanding the world in recent years. By the end of 2018, China had signed 38 bilateral or regional maritime agreements with the BRI countries. Chinese seaport companies had participated in 42 seaport constructions or operations in 34 countries. My presentation including 4 parts. Part 1 is about China's involvement in the seaport development in the Eastern Mediterranean. In the Eastern Mediterranean, there are eight countries in the region. Maybe we can see the map. Greece, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, and Palestine, and Egypt, and several 8 countries. And the region is located at the crossroads of the 3 continents of Europe, Asia, and Africa. In 2017, 6 ports in the region entered the world's top 100 ports released by the Lloyd's list, corporation based in London. Most of the countries in the region have ambitions to build a transport harbor and tries to attract more investment for their seaport development. Generally, the main ports under Chinese construction are primarily concentrated in Greece, Turkey, Egypt, and Israel. This page. In Egypt, Chinese companies have been active in construction projects at the port side and the port target since 2007-2008. In 2012, China Ocean Shipping Company (COSCO) participated in the construction project of port side and the new Suez Canal. In Greece, COSCO obtained a 35-year concession to operate 2 parts of the port BRF, the largest port in Greece, and gradually turned it into the gateway to Europe. In 2016, COSCO acquired 67% of the equity of the port BRF and increased the investment gradually. And in Israel, a Chinese company named CAEC obtained a contract to build a port project in Ashdod in 2014. In 2015, Shanghai International Port Group acquired the construction contract for the for the new Haifa port and 25 years of terminal operation right beginning in 2021. In Turkey, a Chinese company named China Merchant Holding Company jointly with CEO Pacific and CSC Overseas acquired 65% equity interest of Port Terminal in Istanbul in 2015. Yeah, we can see the Suez Canal and the port side here, located here. This picture is about the pirates and Haifa in Israel and Ambali, Port Ambali in Istanbul. Here is the Port, 123 pairs operated by the Chinese company. And here is a summary is about China's seaport development in the region. I mentioned that. Yeah. The part one is about the dynamics of China's participation in seaport development in the region. China is selective in its seaport construction operation. It's depending on the treat of the financial, political, and security risks and the economic benefits. I think there are 5 key factors contributing to China's participation in the region. The first one is about the economic competitive needs of the host countries. China's seaport development is closely related to economic strength, investment capacity, market capacity, and the potential for of the host countries as well. Countries with significant economic strength, a higher level of the development, a stable domestic market, and a relatively large scale of international trade may have more demand for maritime transport, and thus they may have stronger willingness to engage in port development with China's involvement. For example, Greece is a member of the EU, has unique geographic location as the gateway of the EU, and export-oriented economic structure and policies, and developed the shipping industry. Yeah. The second factor is about the economic interdependence of China and the host countries. China's seaport development along the MSR, the Maritime Silk Road, is determined by its overseas economic interests. The more interdependence between Beijing and the target countries, and the stronger desire for seaport cooperation. We can see the China and the Greece trade volume was only more than 5 billion last year, and the bilateral trade between China and Egypt was about more than 13 billion, and Beijing is the largest trading partner of Cairo. China's direct investment stock in Egypt was about 1 billion. And China and Egypt signed an MOU on cooperation regarding the Suez Canal corridor 3 years ago. The third factor is about the political affinity between China and the host countries. The political affinity between China and the host countries is very important. We need to consider it. In the region, we can see in recent years the leaders of China and Greece have exchanged visits frequently and have established a comprehensive partnership. Greek and Chinese leaders highly value the significance of BRI and the port project in Piraeus. Between 2016 to 2019, we can see the Greek Prime Minister visited China 5 times, and President Xi, Chinese President Xi, paid a visit to Greece last month. And Turkish President Erdogan visited China 3 times in the last 4 years. Egypt is one of the most active countries towards the BRI and has repeatedly expressed its willingness to participate in the BRI. China and Egypt established a comprehensive strategic partnership, and Egyptian President al-Sisi visited China 4 times in the past 4 years. The fourth factor is about development potential of the targeted seaports. Beijing attaches great importance to the potential of the host country seaports. The level of facilitation of trade and transportation, import, logistic processing capacity, shipping connectivity, and shipping operating costs have a direct impact on port development potential. For example, Greece has long been the world's major maritime trade and shipping power. Yeah, we can know that. Egypt is another hub for China's seaport investment. The last factor is about the regional influence of the seaports. The willingness of China's seaport diplomacy hinges on the regional roles of the port. The geo-economic roles of the seaport are of great importance to the development potential and perspective of MSR. In the region, the countries have a variety of advantages, while the role of Egyptian and Greek seaport are more significant because they are the pillars in the region. We can know Greece is pivotal to building a new channel of landing maritime transport connecting Europe and China. Perhaps it's the gateway and the shortcut to southeastern and central Europe. Perhaps will be the core of China-Europe land maritime express passage, which will transform Greece into a window for deepening China-EU economic cooperation. Yeah. The next page, I have a summary. This is just a qualitative analysis studying the different seaports in the region. The part 3 is about China's seaport diplomacy, his study of the Eastern Mediterranean. And we all know that there are some criticism and suspicion on China's investment in the world. For example, in a report titled Energy Features in Asia, final report, the authors coined the term of string of peers, listing 5 seaports that China was building a strategic purpose. In recent years, media reports in Japan and India has also expressed concern over the strategic intent of China's development of seaports along the MSR. They criticized the lack of transparency in China's seaport investment, which increased the debt burdens for local countries because of China's seaport development. A news story in the Japan Times media stated that China practiced the so-called creditor imperialism in its overseas seaport development. Chinese government scholars, however, have different narratives of China's overseas investment on seaport. Here, we could use a new terminology of seaport diplomacy to probe it in the case of in the Eastern Mediterranean. Seaport enterprises are pioneers and implementers for China's seaport diplomacy. The Chinese government encouraged enterprise to actively participate in overseas seaport development. Meanwhile, there are intense competition among the Chinese different Chinese companies, and the Chinese companies expect more policy and financial support from Chinese government. In this context, Chinese government try to achieve a positive interaction with seaport enterprise, different the companies. So we put the attempt to promote China's seaport diplomacy in the region from the geo-economic versus geopolitical debate. Yeah, you can see these people. The region is located in the troubled waters, where outside powers have built a military presence for the geopolitical influence, such as the U.S. Military presence in Syria, Turkey, and Israel, and the Russia have the military base in Syria. However, China has so far shied away from geopolitical variables, and it is reluctant to deploy troops in the region to avoid entanglement. So we think that China is exploring its geo-economic interest in priority, different from the U.S., Russia, and Britain and France, which perceive the area as a battlefield. China regards the region as a market for economic interests. So there is a summary about this analysis. The part 4 is about challenges towards China's participation in the seaport development. The seaport development strategy and the first challenge maybe is the seaport development strategy, and the priority of the regional countries may not be consistent with China's policy. The second one is about developing the supporting infrastructure of the seaport, and the demand for connecting land and maritime infrastructure has become a challenge to China's seaport developing in the region. The third one is due to the various economic and operational risks in seaport development. It's difficult to judge whether such projects are profitable or not. Some countries in the region have attractive business environment and shabby infrastructure. Although the Chinese government is more proactive and has ambition to invest in the seaports in the region, it has to focus on the main goal of the companies, attaching importance to the economic profit and the sustainability of the project. Fourth, the complicated political relations among regional countries and the growing tensions between Beijing and Washington have deteriorated the vary of geopolitics. Seaport constructions are the essential mission of China's MSR. A geo-economic strategy aiming to avoid regional political entanglement, but China may find it hard to put aside separate and very while seeking economic benefit. Finally, the EU maybe has a complicated response to China's involvement in the seaport development in the region. And we all know that Greece, Cyprus are EU members, which is a traditional interest area for EU. The EU has a serious concern because China's seaport diplomacy maybe will weaken EU influence in the region. annually. In implementing its seaport diplomacy, China seeks geo-economic interests. Its geo-economic power projection is believed to be more compatible with other outside powers and other established powers' geopolitical presence to lessen China's threat assumption. China argues that development instead of democracy is the fundamental solution to regional conflicts. Seaport construction will bring jobs and foster economic prosperity in the area. And China's seaport diplomacy is pragmatic on case-by-case basis. Its seaport investment can be divided into 3 different levels. We can see that Greece and Egypt rank the first because they are more prominent on seaport development with global significance, securing the pivotal relations in the Eastern Mediterranean. For the Piraeus, for the Site, for the Damiette, are the most significant ports in the region for China. The seaport constructed by Chinese companies in Turkey and Libya enjoys the secondary position, while the China's participation for the Tripoli of Lebanon ranks the first, which aims to be almost exclusively used for the coastal reconstruction of Syria in the future. So this is the presentation. Thanks for this.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'd like to ask Professor.
Thank you for the presentation, and also thank you for Sakai-sensei, Yamao-sensei for having me here as commentator. But to be very honest, I intend to be here as a good learner rather than a commentator because my expertise on this region, especially on the Mediterranean, is so limited. But probably I'm not qualified commenting from the area studies perspective. But my research is mainly on the nexus between the theoretical studies and also the empirical studies. And in the theoretical part, focused on perception and misperception and perception, self-perception and perception rebuilding, etc. And also empirical studies, one part of my empirical studies also included Chinese politics and diplomacy. So today I would like to elaborate on my comments from these 2 general perspectives. First of all, I appreciate Dr. Zou's project, and it's very interesting and very timely. I still recall my memory very vividly, dating back to 2014, almost 1 year after President Xi proposed for this proposal. In 2014, I was in Washington, D.C. But at that time, in Washington, D.C., the policy circle, nobody knows about what Belt and Road. It's a very new, very unfamiliar word. So nobody talks about the Belt and Road Initiative at that time. I was with the Center for International Studies in CSIS. So at that time, this debate was not so hot. So now 5 years passed. When we assess the current debate on situation, we found that what OBOR, BRI, have already entered into English terms. Almost, at least for the people in policy circles, in academia, or in think tanks, I can say nobody does not know about this word. In this sense, these projects have great publicity effects in the past 5 years. So, but most literature on One Belt One Road scholarship mostly rests on the Asian countries, for Southeast Asia, South Asia, on Mediterranean, particularly Eastern Mediterranean part. I think the literature, existing literature, is very limited. In this sense, I think the presenter is contributing to fill some scholar gap in field to contribute more full description of this project. This is my first point. The second point, I would like to add and push a little bit better, if I may. From the theoretical part, I'm not very sure what kind of theoretical perspective you are going to use in your analysis. Probably you're not from IR background. Probably this is the reason I assume. For me, I'm working on another project now on the economic statecraft with comparative perspectives, and China is a very important part of that. So you're talking about sea diplomacy. What is the definition of sea diplomacy? And what kind of economic statecraft in this specific case can decode the Chinese external behaviors? So that would be more interesting from theoretical building and others. And the second one is on the perception. So Dr. Zou is providing a picture of how the Chinese think about this project in the Eastern Mediterranean area. It's quite good, but the specific behaviors in this region must also be perceived by others. How the others perceive its behaviors in this region. For example, the host countries, international organizations, EU, United States, a lot of stakeholders are involved in this process. So perception gap could be very possible and likely. So how to fill up this theoretical perspective, insert this theoretical, for example, perception gap or self-perception and other perceptions gaps, etc., will make the analysis more interesting. These are 2 points from theoretical line. The third comment from me is more on an empirical perspective. So from empirical perspective, I think you do not, because of time restraints, you do not have time to extend your discussion on the specific cases. But many cases actually in this part of the world quite complex and complicated. You mentioned about economic dynamics, and China probably intend to focus on the economic benefits. Yes, it's possible, it's good, but I do not think China, like any other great powers, would like to enter into this region, could enjoy luxury of immunity to the local disputes or even domestic conflicts. Sometimes you will be consciously or unconsciously, willingly, unwillingly involved in the domestic and the regional disputes. So without a very careful assessment on the local risks, I think it would be very risky. And this risk, how can this risk be reduced? A big question. And in this sense, I personally think the area studies on this part of the world, I personally doubt about the intellectual support, whether the area studies in this part in China is sufficient to provide this kind of intellectual support or not. I think other countries, for example, EU countries and Japan, maybe they have their better detailed area studies expertise. But for China, this region is still newcomer to this region. How to increase the sensitivity, academic sensitivity, political sensitivity, social sensitivity to the region would be a shortcut to more successful enterprise. So for others, I think for the empiricals, if we go more specific case, for example, Greece, I think it's great, and because it could also symbolize the shake hands between 2 old civilizations, Chinese civilization and Greek civilizations. But we have to increase our anthropological sensitivity. When you go to that region with high civilization, they might be also like the Chinese, they have a great power on the civilizations. So if you're going to build a port in a high civilization place like Greece, have to be very sensitive to their anthropological concerns. For example, I think in this year, I think in March, I was in America, I read a newspaper coverage, probably from New York Times or Washington Post, I forgot. If my memory is not very mistaken, it's a report talking about the anthropologist protection organization in Greece. They raised the concerns on the Chinese port construction there. So in this sense, you have to adjust to many diversified concerns locally. So this will be more difficult than just designing a grand strategy. Grand strategy is very good, but grand strategy must be matched by more carefully designed, detailed research and analysis. These are my comments. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Do you have any, can I collect some comments and questions and then, Ishida-sensei and
Thank you for a very informative presentation. I have just one question. Once upon a time, the Chinese government in 1970s and 80s also helped African countries economically. For example, that the building railroad between Tanzania and Zambia. And during that time, the Chinese government said that they want to just develop self-reliance in order to emancipate from imperialistic dependence. And that was their logic, that even though they are poor countries still, that China during that time, but still they helped the African countries. And the logic was a kind of the self-dependence and self-independence and self-reliance. But as far as your explanation today is concerned, China is playing the same game as great powers. Just they want to get a kind of economic hegemony of the world. But this seems to me that the logic was completely different from the 1970s and 80s. So are there any such kind of logic they used to have, or by now everything has been changed, so that China became a great power and they are just seeking for a kind of economic hegemony? Or do you have any explanation of the logic of justification of the expansion of the Chinese economics?
Can I one more question?
Thank you very much. Related to the Ishida-sensei's question, I'd like to ask you about the basic policy, Chinese policy towards Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Because, actually, as for Japan, we have struggled to solve this problem, making Israel a little bit, keeping a distance with Israel in order to get a good relation with Arab countries for the 70s and the 80s. And listening to your presentation, you deal with Israel and Egypt, Lebanon, or any other Arab countries, or even Greece and Turkey, both together to have a good relation in the seaport construction. So how does such kind of the policy reflect the basic Chinese policy towards the Israel-Palestinian conflict? Is there any inconsistency, or do you consider that economy is the economy and politics is another thing, or something like that? Could you elaborate a little bit more?
Okay, do you have any? Okay.
So I have a very short question. Basically, I was wondering if there is a deviance according to regime time in the interactions with the Chinese government. Because there's been debate about the Belt and Road Initiative as something that, for example, authoritarian countries are more likely to approve of because it offers them access to resources and funds they would not have, for example, from the EU. Whereas a country like Greece would have accountability towards the European Union at the same time as interacting with the Chinese government. So I was wondering if that has an impact, maybe.
Okay. You have 8 minutes. So would you please answer the question?
Yes. Thanks for the comments and question. I am proficient. I talk about the topic is very, maybe a very complicated and controversial question. Professor Zhang mentioned the China's what the interests want to get by the support the investment, and I would like to interpret the support the conception about the support the diplomacy. I mean that the support diplomacy is mainly referred to China's would like to connect its strategy with that the targeted countries, leverage each party's advantages in support development and ensure that the Chinese companies serve China's diplomatic objectives in participating in overseas support development through government coordination, so as to satisfy the corporate interests, the needs of targeted countries and China's influence. Yes, it's true that when China invests the support development, it will not only get the economic benefit, maybe will have political influence in the region and in the world. In my opinion, China just would like to improve the cooperation with the country along the Belt and Road, and to get firstly to get a win-win cooperation, achieve a win-win cooperation. About the question, it's true that China is not a rich country still, and have more and more assistance in the world to African countries and other regional countries. I think it's normal for China and India and Turkey are the new donors to become a new donors in the recent years. I don't think China is really a great power now. Yeah. about the China's foreign policy, not only because of China hope to improve its influence in the world, but also the more and more the developing countries want to attract more investment from China. In the region, we can see the Egypt and other Arab countries would like to have more and more cooperation with China now. So. So anyway, sorry for my limited English. I just want to say China's foreign policy to the developing countries, including the Middle East, is it's true. China have a great increasing investment and influence in the region. But have more and more and receive more and more suspicion or worries about China's investment in the region. Yeah, it needs China to deal with it carefully. Yeah. We can know that the suspicion or worries about China's investment in the region is based on the China's threat assumption. I think it's true. But the next question is about how to balance how to balance the interests or concerns China and the local countries. Yeah, it's right. Although China has many partners in the region, its political and economic relations with the regional countries are rather very complicated. On the one hand, we can see the regional countries have direct competition and or conflict. Maybe every seaport wants to be a harbor, but which is somehow wishful thinking. On the other hand, China's seaport development integrates regional countries' seaport into overall layout the maritime Silk Road, which reduces the policy options for regional countries in their seaport development, and will inevitably cause some worries in the regional countries, such as the worries about the debt trap. Yeah, it's a question. Sorry, I have to stop it. Sorry, maybe I missed some questions because of my limited English. Thank you all.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry that we don't have much time